Hello, everybody. Howdy, and welcome to another adventure in history. I hope that your world is going okay, and I hope that you are having an excellent day yourself. It has been a little bit of a chaotic world for me today, but that's okay. Hey, ya Moose. Hiya, Sci-Fi Taoist. Hello, Figment. Hope you all are having lovely days. Work was long today. Not bad, just really, really long. I got 6 books on German history. That's excellent.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. Kyle.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. Kyle, thank you so much for that subscription. That is much appreciated. Did that audio play through for you all? I feel like the audio didn't come through. Did you all hear I'm Spartacus? The audio was working. Okay, cool. This week has been very trying. I found a used and affordable graphics card on the internet last week, and I bought it, and it came in this week. And Tuesday, I tore the computer down and put the new graphics card in and installed everything, and the graphics card that I bought off of the internet used did not work. So I then had to reassemble all of the computer and everything and go through the process of trying to return something that was listed as non-returnable on eBay, which thankfully worked out like more or less okay. But yeah, I'm still back on the old school GTX 460 graphics card right now. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's a bitch. Yeah, it's a 460. That's the spare. That's the one that I have to run. Yeah. So let me say hello to everybody. Hey, Fit, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Lumpy, welcome, my friend. Good to see you in. Figment got a booster shot yesterday. Oh, yeah, the booster shot put me on my booster butt. You're finding your 1080 lacking. Lumpy, you're processing a lot more data than I am as well. But if you want to get rid of a 1080, I know a good home for it. Hey, Shmonite, good to see you. You have a Commodore 64. I'm running mine on a Dorito chip, basically, right now. You start a new job on February? Awesome. Figment, if you don't mind sharing, what's your new job? You don't have to, by the way, of course, if you don't want to give too much information. But at least message me and we can talk about it. Minor headache. Ugh. Oh yeah, with the very big 3080. That's a hefty card, and I'll not be able to afford one of those for years. But welcome, everybody. The show is Adventures in History. My name is Shane. I teach college history and sociology, and we just hang out on stream and we talk about stuff. Usually I have something planned. And on Thursdays, what we do is go through history in chronological order. So we have started at the very beginning, and we are now all the way up into the 5th century, which is the year 400 to the year 500. And we look at regional history in basically 100-year chunks. So we're going to be talking tonight about the 5th century in northern China. So if you were with us on last Thursday, we talked about what's going on down here in southern China. And the results were not very promising. The Liu Song dynasty in southern China are not the world's best rulers. They believed a little bit too strongly in keep it in the family. And they murdered a whole bunch of people. Full-time sub at a private school in the area, one of the nice areas. They came to me with the job after you applied to history. Okay, cool. You're hoping that, yeah, get the foot in the door, and yeah. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. That's good. I appreciate that, and I hope that it works out for the best. If you need any references, or if I can be of any assistance, absolutely let me know. I'd be happy to do whatever I can to help. For those of you that do not know, Figment and I went to grad school together and have traveled the world together. It is a good friend, and I am very excited to have good news from the Figment front. So yeah, what are we talking about? Northern China. So, as a bit of a brief reminder, if anybody wasn't around in previous streams, which I know, people have lives and things happen. If you weren't around when we talked about this stuff earlier, basically what's going on is that in the 300s, there was a fairly powerful Chinese dynasty called the Jin. And it's spelled Jin. And they started off being pretty powerful. They were the winners of the big three kingdoms of China. So if you know about the big war of the three kingdoms that has sort of taken over popular mythos in China, the Jin dynasty was sort of the winner of that and had come out of that in a pretty good spot. But over time, they had not been very good leaders and had fallen by the problem of constant warfare and manpower issues, which basically which basically made them bring in foreign people that were not Chinese at that time to rule a lot of the territory in the north, and that of course ends up causing the kingdom to eventually collapse. Okay, Nomad, okay, Nomad. How are you doing today? How are you now? Good. I mean, good. How are you? Oh, not so bad. You would tell me a saucy anecdote. Lumpy, you're always welcome to share saucy anecdotes in the chat. As always. Always saucy is fine. We've got some streamers tonight with us that are good friends, and I'm very happy to always get a chance to see them. We've got with us, if I can type, I'm having such a slow day today. We've got Lumpy Dragon Potato, who is a Minecraft streamer, and what can I get for you? Is a Minecraft streamer, but also a very smart dude that works in the field of chemistry and has a lot of great ideas. We've also got with us the Visual Nomad, who is perhaps the only person that I've ever met on Earth that appreciates Letterkenny to the level that I do. But Visual Nomad is also a oil painter that does beautiful work. I was hanging out in Nomad's room earlier today. I got a chance to drop in after I got in from work. Definitely go give Nomad a follow. And we've got Evo. Evo's going to pop in and be all sneaky and hit the lurk real quick. But that's okay, Evo. I saw you, my friend. Go follow Evo Lodzi, who is a great streamer that is an evolutionary biologist, but also talks about a lot of things about sustainability and keeping the Earth basically in good shape, and has a lot of great data. Has been recently doing some really fun streams on Saturdays where he'll go through the Reddit evolution board and answer questions, and that's been really fun. So go give Evo a follow. Good stuff. Nomad, just to let you know, between when you went off of stream and when I came on stream, I did finish watching season 10 of Letterkenny, and I I particularly got a kick out of the Vidvoc episode, and my wife and I both kind of laughed ourselves silly at Riley and Jonesy. That was the crazy thing is I could actually see that blowing up on the internet. Oh my goodness gracious, Lumpy. I don't think that's possible, but I also don't know. That might be a question that I would just leave to Evo and then run away. Just drove down to DC from Philly under heavy rain. Now you're trying to get some low-key work done while working. Cool, Evo. I will not. I'll try to speak in my dulcet tone voice about everything about northern China. Easy listening for your time at work with Shane. It's been raining literally the last 2 days here, and there was a very, very strong band of thunderstorms that came through just before me going on stream, and I was worried that it might knock the power out. But luckily, we're okay. We've got some adventure to do tonight. We're going to have a good time. Always good times here on Adventures with Shane in the Afternoon, talking about things that matter back in history. National Public Radio, Shane. So, I can't remember what it was, but I saw this thing on the internet one time where it's like you, to get your NPR name, you take your last name and you put it as your first name. And then you take the first syllable of the street you grew up on and the second syllable of the city that you grew up in, and that's your NPR name. So my NPR name is McInnes Meberg. This is McInnes Meberg reporting on the scene from NPR. That's not my stripper name. I don't know what my stripper name is. I know that George Costanza's stripper name is Buck Naked, if he ever decided that he wanted to get into stripping or porn. If you're curious, it's called the Flesh Opera Cries of the Firstborns. It's from the official soundtrack of a game called Struggling. Wow. I've not heard of this game, but I'm interested. Your stripper name is Shameless. I don't have a lot of shame. I've recently discovered that I do have a little bit. I thought that I had none, but apparently I do have some. It's just hard to get to, right? Okay, let's talk about some China. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and make goofy jokes and talk in funny voices for the rest of the stream, which I'm sure will probably be just as entertaining, if not more entertaining, than actually what I normally do on stream, so who knows. I used to have a little point redemption for do an impression, but it never really got used. I think it got redeemed like 10 times total. And I know for a fact that 5 of those was one guy in 2 streams that just went on a rant with it. And ended up having to do a whole bunch of weird stuff, but that was okay. Alright, so we talked about the Jin Dynasty a little bit. The Jin Dynasty falls apart. Stripper name is mom's maiden name, last name, mom's maiden last name, and your first pet's name. I don't know if I want to say that. Because my first pet's name was Buster. So that's actually a really great name for a stripper. But I'm just going to leave it there. Just going to leave it there. So the Jin Dynasty in China starts falling apart. And especially here in the northern part of China, it's going to start turning over some of the territory to what they refer to in China as the 5 barbarians. And these 5 barbarian tribes are the Xiongnu, the Xianbei, the Qiang, the Jie, and the Di. And these 5 barbarians are going to end up starting a war because they all figure out that the Jin Dynasty was falling apart. And so there's this period of time in the 300s, early 300s, it's called the War of 5 Barbarians, but we're not going to talk about that because that was last phase, because I'm just trying to give some background here for those that might not have been with us. Yeah, there's a lot of combinations that get not safe for work real quick. Anyway, this leads us into a period of time where the Jin Dynasty is still technically around, but we enter something that's referred to as the period of 16 kingdoms. So if you do some Google searches on this stuff and you type 16 Kingdoms China, you're going to get a whole bunch of information that stretches from about 304 up through about 439. And the 16 Kingdoms is a big mess. The map just sort of splinters, and the Jin Dynasty barely holds on. The people that are holding on to power manage to run down south and basically abandon the north to these different groups of people. And this is going to be a really weird scenario for a lot of people in the north, because the vast majority of the population that live in these territories are still Han Dynasty Chinese people, right? But the people that are ruling them are not ethnically Chinese. They don't speak Chinese. They don't have Chinese names. The language that they write in is not Chinese in many situations. So this is a very much a kind of an occupying force situation that a lot of people in northern China are in. And this is uncomfortable both for the people that are being ruled and the rulers themselves, because they constantly have to worry about some of the nobility that had been left behind by the Jin Dynasty, sort of leading rebellions or trying to repel these barbarian tribes, as they were referred to. So it's a big mess, and this goes on in the north for most of the 300s. And there are going to be several kingdoms of these barbarians. Again, I call them barbarians because that's what the Chinese called them. They're different people. Again, the Xiongnu, Xianbei, etc. There are going to be several that are going to turn up to be fairly powerful kingdoms in themselves, and we'll go through some of these in just a bit. But for the majority of the 4th century in northern China, there's a whole bunch of wheeling and dealing. There's all sorts of intermarrying. There are old tribal conflicts that pop up. There are a whole bunch of old familial inter-family conflicts that pop up. Even different clans among the same groups, so like one Xianbei clan against another Xianbei clan, or one Xiongnu clan against another Xiongnu clan. And it gets pretty nasty. And this is what's going to allow the Korean kingdom of Goguryeo, which we talked about, that's sitting over here, to expand so much. If you were with us a few weeks ago when we talked about the expansion of Korea, they're going to be able to expand this way, mostly because all of these northern kingdoms are infighting. So Goguryeo becomes a bit of a power during this period of time. It sort of hits the apex of Korean influence. Were there 17 plus kingdoms, but some were determined later to not have a clear orbit and removed as official kingdom. they hadn't cleared out, yeah. Pluto will always be a planet in my heart as well, Nomad. There's actually a petition to put Pluto back as a planet, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it's actually not too far from that. One of the problems that historians today have when trying to apply terminology to the 16 kingdoms is that a lot of them start adopting older Chinese kingdom names. Like, we'll see the Xia kingdom again, and we haven't seen the Xia since literally the first dynasty of China, back potentially as far back as 3000 BC, right? So they're going to bring all these names back. There's going to be a resurgence of the name Qin, which was the first imperial dynasty. Qin Shi Huang, the guy that, or Shi Huangti, whoever you want to call him, the first actual emperor of China, the Dragon Emperor, right? His dynasty was called the Qin. So there's going to be another state that's called Qin. There are 4 different Yans, Kingdom of Yan. There are 3 different Liangs. And it gets pretty messy. And that's why I'm sort of trying to give you a 30,000 feet overview of this stuff without trying to get too deep, because I'll just be really honest, I don't know all of this stuff by heart when it gets down to the nitty gritty. I can't remember which Yan killed that person first and which intermarried with that. The granular details of a lot of the early stuff during the 16 Kingdoms period is lost to me, because it takes a lot of studying to really figure it out. It takes a lot of dedication to remember all of the names. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was a decent movie. I feel like it definitely had more heart than a lot of Marvel movies had. I like the fact that they didn't run away from the fact that there were differences between generational families, especially immigrant families. I think the greatest scene in the entire movie, and this might be me just being weird, was the scene with, I can't remember Awkwafina's character's name, but when they were at Awkwafina's grandmother's house, That was a great scene. I really appreciated the interplay between all of the different generations. I thought that felt very genuine, and I think that came from having people that were of Asian descent who had immigrant families working with the movie, and I think that made a lot of impact. It was a good movie overall. I'm glad that it did well. I'm hopeful that they're going to do something good with that character. Sometimes you need a working flow chart / family tree to figure out anything, and that takes a lot of time and work. Oh, yeah. So the 16 Kingdoms borders fluctuate like mad. They all intermarry with each other. The thing about the specific issue here when it comes to tracing rulers and things of that nature and ruling families is that there were not necessarily rules that required you to pass from father to son, especially when we get later on and Confucianism starts pushing a lot in Chinese worlds. It's perfectly okay for the throne to pass from brother to brother. So you have potential rulers who all have the same family name that are, the prince of this or the king of this or the so and so of that, and because they all have the ability to potentially rule, they all end up getting put in line to rule, and then it gets really, really messy. When things are more linear, it's a lot. One of the things that I could compare this to, if any of you all have been around long enough to remember when we talked about the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt. That's a similar sort of situation to what happens in all of the northern kingdoms during the 16 Kingdoms period. It gets real hard to follow. But we are going to end up with... Oh, I'm sorry, I need to show you this. So by the time we get to our period, so we'll call it 400 or so, this is what China looks like. All right, so we've got the remnants of the Jin dynasty down here, and they have some territory, but not a lot. We have the Huanchu, the Chaoqi, the Qin, Southern Yan, later Yan, the Northern Wei, the Northern Liang, the Southern Liang, the Western Liang. We've got some Kyrgyz people, some Khitan people, and if we continued over this direction, we'd end up with Goguryeo. We've also got the Tuyahun playing right here, and there should also be a word right about here that says Ruoran, groups of people that we've talked about in the past. So you can tell just by looking at the map that there is a lot going on. And this is going to be the world that our first character is going to sort of grow up in. And instead of trying to approach this history from the perspective of all of these different kingdoms individually, what I sort of decided to do as a way of attempting to keep this at least somewhat streamlined is that we're going to start focusing on the ruling family of the kingdom that ends up winning it all. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the end sort of goal here. The kingdom that we're going to start talking about is the one that ends up uniting the North. And it's going to start with a guy who isn't originally an emperor, a guy named Tuoba Gui. And he is... images, this guy. Now, hey Atuna, what's up, man? Good to see you. So this is Tuoba Gui. And he is not Han Chinese. He is part of one of the powerful Xianbei clans. And specifically, he is part of the Tuoba clan, which is, duh. The Toba clan is one of the ruling families, but it's not actually the big ruling family of the Xianbei. There's another one that we'll talk about in just a second. And I hit the wrong button. I'm off. But that's okay. So, what's this guy going to do? Well, first off, he finds himself in a predicament. That being, he is a lesser king among more powerful kings. And he's a pretty smart guy, so he starts basically trying to make a name for himself by being useful, right? If he can find a way to be useful to other more powerful kings, he can sort of attach himself to them and then maybe ride their coattails. And this is going to be fairly successful. He manages to create quite a bit of good faith. He manages to engender a lot of good feelings toward him, and this is going to allow his kingdom to kind of be left alone for a little while. And in a period of time where everybody is trying to kill everybody, sometimes the most powerful thing that you can do is negotiate peace for yourself and give yourself time to take a breath and not have to react. Because in these big wars, it's really hard to be proactive. You end up having to constantly be on the back foot reacting to somebody else. Like, this person has made an alliance with that person, or this person has married this other family, or this person is invading, or this kingdom is invading that other kingdom, or the king of this person just died and maybe you need to go invade them. But Tobogui manages to, like, he can sit for a second and he can think like a fixer or a lackey. A little bit of both, Shmonite. He's wise enough to play whatever role is needed. And specifically here, the kingdom that he's mostly going to kind of attach himself to, if we go back to our map here, is this kingdom right here of Later Yan. And you go, well, they're pretty small. Why? And by the way, Tobogui is the leader of Northern Wei. He's got this kingdom right here. And you go, well, that's a big chunk of territory. Well, it's also not necessarily very densely populated. And that's sort of the thing. And the ruling Shanbei, this is the way, right? The more powerful Shanbei family, which is the Murong clan we've mentioned before, they're up here ruling Later Yan. And I've mentioned Xianbei several times, and if you have been around, you know that we have kind of an unofficial celebrity of the stream, and every time I mention this Xianbei, I must show this particular image, because I must remind everybody that the Xianbei were horseback archers by nature. And I then show you a picture of a horseback archer that was a Xianbei, and it's the chunky horse. Oh yes, everyone's favorite overweight horse. It is indeed the chunky horse. This is the Xianbei. And I think people love the horse more than the guy, but that's okay. We don't actually know the guy's name. We know that the horse's name is Chunky Horse. One day I'll do something with Chunky Horse. I don't know. It might be like a stream something or other. I briefly toyed around with trying to make it an emote, but I don't have the art skills for that. I did see a reaction earlier that I saw Color by Emmy sneak in with a reaction. Everybody go follow Emmy, who is a great artist and does really cool art stuff, including the little adventure chain that's down in the corner down there. Horse is better than the rider for sure. I'm being visited by a puppy. What are you doing? Scratching and shedding. Do you want to come and see me? Come here. Come on. Hey, come see me. No, come over here. Come over here. I'm already turned around. Come. There was the puppy. Hello. Hello. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, you want some attention? Oh my goodness. What is that? You're gonna sneeze at me? Boo. I don't know what boo means. What? What are you doing? I don't know what that is. You're just being so weird. What do you want? Do you want to play? Go get your toy. Go. Oh my gosh. So needy. I've got inundated by puppy slobber. Oh, there's the puppy. Oh yes, the puppy of war. She's a mess. It's been raining all day and she probably has a lot of pent-up energy because we haven't been, letting her run around. She wants to save me from the dementia that is manifesting by talking to myself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. She probably wants to go outside, which is probably horrible because, again, it's raining, and every time she goes out there, she gets soaking wet because she won't just go out there and use the bathroom. She has to go run around in the water. And now I hear my wife opening the door, so I know that's what she wanted. Oh, Kaylee. I don't know why she comes back here. Like, I'm on the other side of the house from the door. Like, I'm almost as far back from the door as I can get in the house, and she'll come in and woof at me or a woo at me. But, it is what it is. So, this guy, Tobagi, is going to start off as a vassal to the kingdom of Later Yan, and he's going to kind of just play in the background, does some political stuff, manages to try to negotiate some peace between some other people for the benefit of his guy. And over the course of time realizes that this breather that he's been able to kind of orchestrate for himself has actually allowed him to build his army back up. And he's going to start using that army to stretch out a little bit. And by the time we get to the very end of the 4th century, so the 390s, Tobagi is going to end up attacking several of the kingdoms around him, including his own former buddies, the Later Yan. And he ends up taking some of their really big cities, especially the cities along the coastline, which are going to really increase their trade, which is bringing in a lot of money, by the way. Trade at this point is starting to kick up quite a bit, especially on seaports. And by the time we get to 399, he's going to get big enough in the britches to declare himself an emperor.
I'm Spartacus.
Well, I mean, I'm Spartacus, though.
Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. We all know Dad is more likely to say yes to the things that we aren't supposed to do. KP, thank you so much for that Prime sub. It is much appreciated. And to everybody that subs, and everybody that just hangs out. You all make my day better. And I don't say that just to be frilly and frou-frou. It really does. You all make my day better. Kaylee is aware that Brittany is mom and Shane is the butler. No, see, that's crazy, though, because actually, Brittany is the doorkeeper. And when it's time to go outside, Kaylee almost always goes to Brittany and will do the look at me, I'm pitiful dance, right? And that's kind of crazy that she always decides to come back and see me when I'm streaming. But such it is. So, in 399, Tobagi is going to say, I'm big enough, I've conquered enough, I'm going to declare myself emperor. And he changes his name to Daiwu. So he's going to be referred to as Emperor Daiwu from now on. And this is going to go pretty well for him. He enters the 400s in a pretty powerful position. And he's going to continue his expansion. He's actually going to completely absorb the kingdom of Southern Yan. He's going to fight a big battle against the kingdom of Qin and end up destroying a big part of their army, which effectively causes their state to collapse. It's immediately going to be taken over by another group that's going to become one of his big enemies. But, this guy is a pretty big deal. He's going to have quite a few military victories. He's going to expand the territory quite a bit. He's most importantly, though, going to shore up his territory.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Tuna.
I'm Spartacus.
Tuna.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
So many
I'm
Spartaci.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Tuna.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
All of the Spartaci are belong to Tuna.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
So many Spartaci.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
And more
I'm
Spartacus.
Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
Tuna.
You shall have camels, horses, an armed escort, provisions, desert vehicles.
And tanks. R.I.P. bits. Tuna, your generosity, as always, my friend, is impressive. So Schmonite, Cherry Round, Magus. Hey, Magus, lurking in the background. Lumpy and Crush. Crush. What up, Crush? I don't know if you all follow Crush builds, but you got to, because he's a cool cat and he does awesome, awesome art, and I dig it. No one has to pay taxes for these subs. And Taoist with the RIP bits. Thank you so much for those bêtes. They are much appreciated. You all are awesome. And there's Bubba World Comics. Hello, Bubba. Good to see you. Happy Lunar New Year as well to you. Year of the Tiger. Rawr. For those of you that do not know, my friend Bubba is a comic strip artist and puppet builder and all-around good person that you need to go follow and hang out with. The only other person that I know personally that, well, no, I take that back. I know one other person. So one of only two people that I personally know that can read hieroglyphics. So that's pretty neat. I don't know. Figment, can you read hieroglyphics? I might have to reassess that number. But it's a small number. I know lots of people. Has everyone seen the new Tiger Gundam that was designed for the new year? Yes, I saw it. I would love to build it. Master grade win. Right? It's pretty friggin' cool. You can read Coptic. Can you really? When did you learn Coptic? Grad school. Yeah, I answered that question for myself. I didn't know you could read Coptic. I thought you were just down with the Greek and familiar with the Hebrew. Oh, you can read and pronounce Coptic. Well, that's cool. Oh, okay. Ah, so you know the letters. I gotcha. I'm with you. But you've been in the market for a beginner's book in case you have any suggestions. You've always wanted to learn, but be drowning in Greek and Korean. Yeah. My name in hieroglyphics is Bird Squiggle Hand Feather. Bird Squiggle Hand Feather. Sounds like a Hogwarts professor. Bubba, if you were a Hogwarts professor, what class would you teach? That's an important question. I would teach history of magic, and I would totally not be Professor Benz. I would be the one that would reenact battles with not full-fledged curses and stuff like that. Maybe I wouldn't do that. Now that I'm thinking about it, it sounds like a pretty bad idea and kind of reckless to do with children. But that's kind of the whole thing about Hogwarts, right? Herbology. Okay, yeah, I could see you. Yeah, I could see that. I think you'd be good at that. Okay, lost my train of thought. Emperor Daiwu. Kingdom of Northern Wei. Things are going great. Solidify the borders. Things are going pretty happy. Things are going so well, in fact, that Emperor Daiwu decides that he wants to try to live forever. Because he's very happy and very pleased with the way that his life is going so far. And he goes, you know what? If I could be immortal, that would be even better. So this is actually going to end up being his downfall. Because he starts consulting with the alchemists. And he starts kind of putting out the call like, hey, can anybody make me immortal? And you probably know where this is going to go. You teach art at the School of Magic and Art and constantly complain how they ignore the arts. I could appreciate that. As a liberal arts instructor, I could totally appreciate that. I'm going to live forever or die trying. That is 100% actually correct. The dude starts to take a whole bunch of alchemical compounds and mixes and such, and he starts consulting a whole bunch of fortune tellers and astrologers and a whole bunch of really, really shady characters, and the things just go kind of sideways on him. And this is almost certainly going to lead to what happens at the end of his life, because it is suggested and probable that he started drinking mercury. So for those of you that don't know, the Chinese had a really interesting relationship with mercury. They thought that it was sort of like the immortality element, because it can always stay liquid and it never dries up. You know, if you put water in a bowl, the water will eventually evaporate and go away. But if you put mercury in a bowl, the mercury will just stay there forever. I mentioned Qin Shi Huang or Shi Huang Ti, or however you want to pronounce his name, or say his name. He's got about 5 of them. He had a river of mercury, a small little like scale model river of mercury in his tomb that actually had little model boats that floated around on it through his tomb. So this concept of mercury and it making you immortal is a thing that somehow catches on inside of the Chinese zeitgeist. And Daiwu was probably going to end up taking a lot of mercury. That's when you know stuff has gotten serious, when the sorcerers start getting involved. Yeah, when you start hiring the sorcerers in China, you know stuff is getting real, right? He decides to live forever. Me, yes, as one does. It leads to his downfall. Me, what an absolutely stunning turn of events. It's a shock, right? Go crazy. Love you some mercury. It makes things turn silver. It does, including your insides. In not a good way. Alchemists be like, drink this. It might turn you gold or turn you immortal, or it can make you a candidate from the next zombie lord. I mean, that's a 33% chance of being a zombie lord. And even zombie lord doesn't sound horrible, because it's like zombie lord, not like, zombie minion or zombie lackey. I mean, zombie lord, that implies you've got like, some sort of horde of minions that you can use at your disposal. I mean, you're still a zombie, but you're a zombie lord. And that, it's not the worst thing ever, right? You remember the bottle of mercury arsenic you found at Carrie's Chem Lab? Oh, was that when they basically had to shut everything down to dispose of the horrible chemicals? I remember that day. I prefer the glowing, dangerous chemicals yourself. Yeah, remember this when the cold grasp of death grasps you. Well, I don't want to be a zombie lord now. But, like, if I make it to some end point of my life where I'm definitely going to die, and somebody gives me the option to be a zombie lord, I'm going to consider that. That was during the disposal of the chemicals, so okay. There's a moment, KP and I have known each other since we were like 3. Went to college together, and there was a particular moment where the chem lab at the college that we went to, which is the same one that Figment went to as well. Anyway, they found a whole bunch of really, really horrible chemicals that they absolutely were not supposed to have anymore, that had kind of been tucked away in the back of the chem lab forever, and they had to like close everything down and call in like the chemical disposal squad stuff. The scary ones were the ones that the labels had clearly melted off and the caps were melting too. See, I didn't actually get to go in this, but KP was a chemistry person. So KP's got a little bit of an inside scoop on that stuff. So Daiwu ends up starting taking mercury, and he he starts getting a little paranoid because it turns out that mercury poisoning starts screwing around with your brain. And the astrologers that he's sort of relying on start giving him a whole bunch of bad news. And when the astrologers realize that the emperor has gone effectively bat-crap crazy and is not in his own mind, the astrologers figure out that they can start influencing him, right? They can go like, oh, the stars say that you should give me a raise. And the emperor's like, oh, yes. Hey, Angel, what's up? What's up, man? Everybody go give Angel a follow. Some job changes have currently kept Angel from streaming as much as he would like to, but go give Angel a follow anyway. As a brilliant guy, it's just fun to hang around, really great gamer, plays stuff that you're going to be interested in watching. Is just an all-around good person. Don't mess with ether crystals, they be whack. Right? So the stars say cluck like a chicken. Yeah, kind of, sort of. And this is going to start causing a big problem. And the emperor's son at the time starts basically trying to maneuver himself into the position of power. Right? Dad is clearly not right in the head. And somebody needs to run the country. And his oldest son was old enough to be in command and had actually done some stuff, kind of low-level stuff with the military, so had a little bit of a following at court, and was the favorite of the mom, right? So the empress, this was her favorite kid. And the Emperor Daiwu kind of sees what's happening and decides that he's just going to take it out on the kid, right? So he starts like really getting up in his son's grill all the time. And, you know, like if the kid crosses the road and doesn't look both ways, he just like beats the crap out of him. Dowagering imminent. We're not unfortunately not quite yet. We will get to one of the most powerful dowagers ever, who names herself Grand Dowager Empress. We'll get there though. But that's a little bit later. So Daiwu is a little upset with his son for getting a bit too big for his role, and decides that he's going to literally start torturing his son. And at one point, he hangs the kid upside down from a well. You know, like you crank the bucket down and then you crank the bucket up with water in it. He ties his feet and hangs the kid upside down in the well, and then basically like water tortures him and like lowers him down into the water where he can't get out, and then like reels him back up so that he can catch his breath and like lets him back down in the water. The son is not particularly happy. The kid's name, by the way, is Toba Shao, if you're interested in this stuff. He's not going to make it too much longer because, well, here's what happens. After the like well torturing incident, the mom and the son decide we're going to go kill Daiwu. And they plot, they figure out how to get into the imperial bed chambers. Yeah, he lost his number one dad mug. I bet they made Christmas awkward that year. They didn't make it to Christmas. They literally actually did not make it to Christmas because they assassinated him at the beginning of December. They sneaked into his bedroom, and while he slept, they gave him the shank. So Emperor Daiwu dies. Emphasis on the die, right? The Goonies would have just sent up a jacket from the well, right? This is my wish, and I'm taking it back. So you might think, oh, well, that means the son is going to be able to take over and rule as emperor. No, that's actually not what happens. The nobles at the court get really upset that they had killed the emperor. The nobles, of course, are the ones that had been running the country while Daiwu was losing his mind. So now they don't like the idea that this new kid is, you know, making plays to run the country for himself. So they end up arresting the son and the mother and put them in jail and then kill both of them. And then the nobles put the youngest son on the throne, who assumes the throne under the name Mingyuan. By the way, Daewoo gets to be emperor basically from 399 to 409. And Ming Yuan's going to rule from 409 to 423. He was 2 years old. He wasn't actually 2 years old. He was in his late teens. And there was a period of time at the early part of his reign that he was under a little bit of some regency. But the thing is, he comes out of it pretty fast. And by the time that he takes over, the borders had shifted quite a bit, and the kingdom looked like this. So if we go back a few, you can see how crazy everything is here at the beginning of Daewoo's reign. And if we get a little bit on to his son, things have calmed down, right? The south has unified under the Liu Song dynasty. The north has drastically cut itself down to just a few kingdoms. But Northern Wei is going to be the biggest one and in the best position. And Ming Yuan has an opportunity here to capitalize on that. He dies. Woo! I see that. I like that. It's pretty good. He's the best or the worst ruler at that age. No in between. Yeah, at 2 years old, you're either the best ruler ever or the worst ruler ever. Ming Yuan took over as a teenager and had some regency, but comes out of it pretty quick and is a very capable leader. The guy actually does a lot of good for his position. He looks like this. I know that this is a horrible photo, but this is the only picture that I could find that is actually attributed to him. I know that you don't get a lot of data from this. It's kind of like crappy calligraphy line art, but he's got the big hairstyle that's kind of common and the little top knot up here. Yeah, he's got like at least 3 chins. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Again, it's hard to find photos of these people, so I'm actually kind of excited that I found that one. So the big hat thing that's got hair on it is kind of a style. So you can see this, like these big circular hats. This is like not his head hair, right? He's got hair under here that's in a top knot, and this is like a big kind of headdress hat thing. That's probably made of fur, which was designed to keep the cold off of you while you're riding on a horse. Tangent. In the Middle East, deep-seated conflicts still fester. Is it similar in China today, or is everyone under the boot too much to notice? That's a great question, Moose. So the issue that's about to happen, and it actually does start happening at the end of the stream here, is that so going back a little bit, the Han Dynasty is sort of held up in Chinese history as the original kind of pan-Chinese ethnic group. And even today, if you talk about ethnic groups in China, one of them is the Han Chinese, right? So, and by the way, there's still various ethnic groups inside of mainland China today. There might actually be more now than there were back then. So the issue that has changed a lot over time is the force of, I don't know, like the how do I say this the right way? So it's like there's a vacuum or a black hole, right? And everything that kind of starts getting in the area of this black hole ends up getting sucked down into it. And the cultural power that was in China at this time was still being held by the Han Chinese. And that was mostly being reflected by the Liu Song at the moment because, again, like Ming Yuan, he's a Shanbei. he would not call himself Chinese. Now, he positions himself a lot to try to take over some of these old Chinese concepts. For example, there's going to be some movements to adopt old Chinese religion and try to tie yourself into some of the old Chinese royal families. And especially what starts happening under the next emperor is that they're going to start trying really hard to find nobles that were left in the north that were original Han Chinese, and they're going to start marrying these Han Chinese nobles into the Xianbei royal family, because they really start pushing this idea that they need to become Chinese, and that has eliminated a lot of the ethnic diversity in China that used to be there. There have been several other instances over the course of Chinese history where that's happened. The Tang Dynasty, which is going to be in power for several hundred years from like the very end of the 600s all the way through the 900s, has a lot of, it's called sinicization. This force that makes people like the Chinese. That's going to happen a lot under the Tang Dynasty. Later, of course, and this is really unfortunate, but Mao Zedong has a lot to do with this. When he was the leader of the Communist Party in China, basically for 40 years, or longer than that, one of his big things was you're either Chinese or you're not, and the only way to be Chinese is to be Chinese. And what he meant there was you have to be Han Chinese. And there was a lot of targeted killings of people that were prominent non-Han Chinese. There was a lot of push to literally rewrite cultural histories to effectively eliminate the memory of some of the other ethnic groups in China. So while there are diversity elements within China, especially, this is mostly going to show up in kind of cultural tastes, right? Like if you go down in the South, there's going to be a little bit more of a Southeastern Asian flair. The way that they dress is a little bit different. The way that they celebrate holidays is going to be a little bit different than up in the North. But there are going to be some pretty drastic, marked differences, like the Uyghurs. If you're familiar with the situation that's going on up in the far kind of northwestern chunks of China, there's an ethnic group up there that are way more Turkish than they ever were Han Chinese, and they're Muslim, and the Han Chinese government hates their guts, and they're rounding them up and forcing them into manual labor camps and forcing them to undergo a whole bunch of re-education, which is a fancy way of saying brainwashing you to try to get them to give up Islam. So there's still ethnic conflict inside of China, but the difference is that the ethnic groups in China had periods of time, especially recent periods of time, where they were under centralized, very, very powerful forces that went to the lengths of murdering millions of people to get everybody to line up. There has not really been a centralized power that was able to ever do that in the Middle East after the Rashidun Caliphate. Maybe the Umayyad dynasty, or the Umayyad Caliphate when they were ruling the Muslim world, but even they had really hard times trying to justify the way that they ruled in Africa versus the way that they ruled in Central Asia. The Middle East is an incredibly diverse area, and we have to remember that one of the reasons why it's so diverse is that it's very old, right? It's very, very old. And the longer people have lived in an area, the more diversity you're going to get, right? So if we look at, for example, south of the Sahara Desert, so sub-Saharan Africa, that is the most concentrated diversity when it comes to linguistics and ethnic groups that exist on the face of the earth. Because people have literally been there since human beings became human beings. So the Middle East has a lot of ethnic differences, and those go back for centuries and centuries and sometimes millennia, right? So I know that's a very kind of long and rambling answer, but that's a pretty good question that I think deserved more than just, oh yeah, there's stuff, you know. But the government of China today still has this sort of idealized version of the Han Dynasty and what Han Chinese means, and they're absolutely forcing that on people, culturally speaking, and economically speaking, and militarily speaking. So I'm so glad that that stuff doesn't happen today. Oh wait, yeah, I mean it's crazy. The world that we live in is a tough thing to do sometimes. It's hard to just assume that because these things happened in the past and we know about them that we have learned our lesson and we're not doing them again. But China is a pretty nasty place, man. I don't know if I would want to live there. The government is run by a bunch of plutocratic crazy people that think that they deserve to decide whether billions of people live or die, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. But Ming Yuan was not that ruler. If Ming Yuan was running China today, China would be a lot better place, because this guy understood the value of being peaceful and trying to come up with solutions that did not involve murder and war. That doesn't mean he didn't kill people. He's not, walking around on a bed of roses or anything, but he's way better than Xi Jinping, right? So Ming Yuan is really good with treaties and politics. His dad was more of a warrior. Ming Yuan's more of a thinker. He's going to be really good with figuring out what people want and then being in a position to offer that to them when they need it. He's going to conduct a very interesting marriage treaty with the state of Qin. This is going to basically put the big enemy state of Xia surrounded by the bad guys. But the big problem that he's going to run into is actually going to come from the north. Now, if we go over here, and if you remember, I know this is going to be like lots of streams ago, but way back in time, or if this is your first time hearing about it, there's a big state, a big kingdom, technically a khanate, right around here that's called the Rouran Khanate. The Rouran Khanate were very bountiful. Bountiful is not the word. They're very big, and there were a lot of them. And they sort of sat right around in here. And they are going to sort of be the gadfly of Northern Wei. They're going to attack all of the time. The Rouran, by the way, are more horseback people. They are a khanate, which means that they are a state and they do have some form of centralized government, but they also act very independently, and the majority of their people are not city dwellers. They are nomadic or semi-nomadic, and when you are a nomadic invading force, that means you have a very big and very powerful tactic, which is I show up, I take whatever I want, and then I disperse and ride away. And if I don't offer you battle, you can't catch me. And the Rouran are going to do this to the Kingdom of Northern Wei about 15 to 20 times over the course of the next century. They're always going to constantly be raiding along the border, but I'm talking about 15 or 20 actually full-out invasions where there are tens of thousands of Rouran horseback soldiers that show up and try to invade Northern Wei. It's cool. You ask China and they said nothing bad is happening there. Oh yeah, of course. Everybody's free and happy. They're a Democratic People's Republic, right? Yeah, Democratic People's Republic of China. Where when you vote, we already have we have your best interests in mind, and you don't even have to choose because you go to vote and there's only one name on the ballot. That's the kind of republic that you really want, right? An easy one where you don't have to think very much. So the Rouran are going to become a constant trouble, and Ming Yuan is going to try to fight them. He's not going to have very, very good luck. They will attack, and he'll mobilize his army to go up, and then the Rouran will just run away, which they can do because, again, they're semi-nomadic. And this is going to cause kind of a constant issue. Anyway, the only real big military stuff that Ming Yuan does is attack down here to the south. Now, there's a big kingdom down here called the Liu Song, right down here. If we go back to our map, you can see that they were sort of the dominant state of the south. Now, this river right here is the Yellow River, and it had been kind of a natural boundary between the Kingdom of Northern Wei and the Kingdom of the Liu Song. But Mingyuan's going to say that's not necessarily the way that it should be. And after there is some crazy stuff that happens with the the Emperor of Liu Song being assassinated, which happened like 6 times over the course of the Liu Song dynasty, the Northern Wei under Mingyuan are going to see an opportunity to expand. So they go on the other side of the river and they take several provinces, big chunks of territory away from the Liu Song. This is going to be a really big victory. Unfortunately, Mingyuan didn't learn the lesson of his dad. And he had kept a lot of the court alchemists and a lot of the fortune tellers around. And the same court alchemists that probably ended up killing his dad are also going to give him something that ends up poisoning him. So in 423, he's going to die from alchemical poisoning, right? So this was supposed to help me, and it ends up killing me. But Mingyuan is going to be a good ruler, and he's going to have a lot of potential that gets spoiled by some weird desire to either live forever or, prognosticate the future. China is like the PETA of countries. Nice name, terrible organization. Yeah, well, we can't all be winners, can we? Okay, so who takes over? Well, his son. His son's throne name is going to be Taiwu. And this guy is one of the more successful, probably the most successful of all of the Northern Wei kings. Taiwu, this is different than Daiwu, by the way. Taiwu is going to take over in 423 when his dad dies. And right away, as soon as Mingyuan dies, the Ruran show back up. They're like, oh, hey, you guys are weak because, you just lost your king and it's time for us to invade and we're going to come get you, blah, blah, blah. Taiwu is going to manage to fight them off. And interestingly enough, I don't know, Sci-Fi, if you're still here, this might interest you. Taiwu is going to get really interested in old Chinese religion. And he's actually going to convert to Taoism. And he's going to have a lot of old ceremonies kind of resurrected from the way back in Chinese history, where Taoist priests will sort of anoint him and give him protective Taoist amulets in this big religious ceremony. So it's pretty interesting, but this is, again, it's kind of part of this black hole effect of everything being gravitationally pulled towards the old Han culture. Taiwu is not going to be his father or his grandfather. He's going to be the best of both of them. Taiwu is a really effective leader. He is going to be the most successful militarily. And what's particularly written about him is that this guy was unafraid to lead from the front. Would go out on campaign, would literally lead the charge in battle. Was kind of seen as a fearless leader and is remembered very, very well in Chinese histories. Lots of stuff written about him. Several movies in Chinese history have been made about him. Several movies of Chinese history have been made about him. He's the star of a show that was a pretty big deal for a little while in China. He's going to be a really effective dude. As an adult, he looks like this. Now, I should note, this is a much later picture. This photo almost certainly is an artist interpretation of what Taiwu would have looked like. Most notably, it's much more colorful than the art of the time. He is portrayed here much more detailed than the art would have been. I just showed you the picture of his dad, and we got, this, which is much more contemporary. So this is it's a cool picture, which is why I got it. The horse is slightly chonky. Yeah, it is. But this is probably not exactly what Taiwu looked like. It's a decent picture, and it is of him, supposedly, so I figured why not show it, because I do think it's cool. I mean, that'd be a nice print if I had wall space that I didn't already need to use for other things that I had. I need to hang up photos and stuff, by the way. So many things that need to be hung up. Anyway, Taiwu is very effective. He's going to go about conquering. He conquers the kingdom of Xia completely. He is going to launch an attack into Rouran territory. He's going to do something sneaky and wait until they did not expect it. And he's actually going to lead an attack into their territory to catch them at unawares. And he manages to capture a big group of them, and he forcibly relocates them down to this area down here, and makes them bring their herds with him or with them. So like all of their sheep and their goats and their horses. He basically relocates. There's a rough estimate of how many people, but I don't think it's accurate. Probably tens of thousands of Rouran down here into the southern part of what might be the Gobi Desert, right? And this is a pretty big deal because this is going to dramatically affect the capacity of the Rouran to attack him, and by putting them basically in his own kingdom, kind of in this region, he's going to be able to keep an eye on them and force them to work for him. And this is going to increase his economy because it turns out that having access to more meat and more leather is a good thing if you're in a situation like he was in, where you need stuff like clothes for army and armor and, food. He's also going to take over the kingdom of Northern Liang and basically put it down or destroy most of it. There's going to be a little bit of interference here, though, with the kingdom of Goguryeo, those Korean people. So if you were with us when we were talking about Goguryeo becoming all-powerful, you'll remember the Emperor Jiangsu, who was the son of Gwanggaeto the Great, the guy that had kind of established the big, powerful Goguryeo capitals and kingdoms. So Jiangsu was a very long-lived emperor and very savvy. And one of the things that he did to allow himself to continue this sort of winning streak that his father had set up was to play games with people. And when Northern Yan is almost conquered, Goguryeo reaches out to them and says, "We'll make an alliance with you because we're on the other side of the kingdom of Wei, and we'll make old Taiwu split his forces." And this saves like a little chunk of Northern Liang. And man, this just really ticks off Taiwu pretty badly. And he sends like all these horrible letters to Jiangsu over in Goguryeo, and it calls him all these horrible names and tells him that he better stay out of this stuff. And if he doesn't, he's going to end up on the wrong end of a spear and all these great little lines and stuff like that. So another area that he goes after is inside of this little zone right here. And if you've been on stream long enough, you will have heard me talk about this region right here, which is known as the Tarim Basin. And this zone right here is of vital importance for the number one thing that is making kingdoms money at this time, and that is trade. The Silk Road that had been established mostly under the Han Dynasty of China connects the big land down here of China across this region and then through the rim right here and under the rim right here to Central Asia. And if you want to control trade coming out of China, you want this zone in your territory. And under the height of the Han Dynasty, they had controlled all of this. And it's going to be a sign of the efficacy of Taiwu that he manages to come over here and take over this southern region right here, which was called Shanshan at the time. Add that to the kingdom, and this is going to fill up the coffers and create a whole bunch of great tax money for him. Things are going great for old Emperor Taiwu. And he's even going to decide, we should go down here and take more of the Song Dynasty too and kick their butts. So he takes more from the Liu Song. And then something really weird is going to happen. So we see here that he lived from 423 to 452. If you're reading the Chinese histories, when you get to about 450 in the history books, you see the emergence of this really interesting kind of quasi-shadowy court official whose name is Zong Ai. And Zong Ai was apparently some type of, adjutant or advisor of some sort, because he was a court eunuch. And this is something that had been going on since the very end of the Han Dynasty, or even the Zhou Dynasty for that matter. These court eunuchs are in these really powerful positions that sometimes get passed down hereditarily. And you go, how does a eunuch pass down stuff hereditarily? Well, we don't have to go all the way back through the stuff that happened at the end of the Han Dynasty. But basically, eunuchs are in powerful positions sometimes in China. And Zong Ai decides that he wants to kind of run the country. And you start seeing his name show up more and more. And then eventually, Zong Ai is going to convince Taiwu that Taiwu's son is actually planning a rebellion. And Taiwu is not completely convinced here. He thinks that there might be something up, but he doesn't necessarily suspect his son in this. He sort of thinks, well, maybe it's not my son, maybe it's all of his friends, and they're trying to push him to do something that he doesn't want to do. So instead of killing his own son, Taiwu decides, we're going to kill all of my son's friends. So all of his son's advisors get killed, and a lot of his son's close friends get killed. And his son at this point is convinced that he's going to be the next one in line. And according to and this is kind of sad, but like according to the historical sources, his son, the prince that would have been the next emperor, dies from anxiety. Like, he's so worried that his dad's going to kill him that he actually dies. And his dad didn't even want to kill him. And this is kind of a horrible situation to be in, where like you basically scared your kid to death. Shadowy court official, now we're getting places. Probably not good places, but places, right? We're going places. Yeah, what a mood, right? That's a bad mood. So when Taiwu finds out that his son has died from this, he goes, oh man, why did my son die? And the court physicians are like, his heart gave out. He was so worried. And he was like, I friggin' knew he wasn't in on this. I knew he wasn't. And he goes to Zong Ai and he's like, what are you doing? You lied about all of this stuff. And Zong Ai was like, oh no, sire, I didn't. I'm late, but did the dad like him? Oh yeah, the dad was pretty fond of his kid. So Taiwu was, he had made this kid the prince. Taiwu has lots of sons, by the way. And he had made this particular one the prince and had a fairly good relationship with him, apparently. Zong Ai, this eunuch, was just causing trouble. Also, hey, Joe. Yeah, the irony, right? It's like crazy. Like, I worried my kid to death. So when Zong Ai is exposed for the liar that he was, Taiwu kind of starts thinking, I need to get rid of this guy. So maybe I can just like pack him up and ship him off into exile or something. And Zong Ai catches on that Taiwu is not pleased. And Zong Ai goes, oh no, you're not going to get rid of me. So what does Zong Ai do? Well, he sneaks himself into the emperor's bedchambers and gives him the stabby stab at night. This is what happens when you play favorites with the kiddos, right? So Zong Ai kills Emperor Taiwu to keep himself alive. Sorry, Taiwu. You were a great leader, probably the best leader that Northern Wei ever saw, and you got killed by a greedy eunuch. Just as a note, if you're ever leading a country, beware of the greedy eunuch, right? It's always the greedy eunuch. The greedy eunuch with the shiv in the bedchamber, if we're playing ancient Chinese Clue, right? What exactly is a eunuch? A eunuch is a biological male that has had his reproductive organs removed and is incapable of fostering children. So sometimes you take off the penis and the testicles. Sometimes you just took off the testicles. But either way, you are not fathering children, which is why you were allowed so close proximity to things like the female. But why? So that they couldn't have kids. You were going to be allowed into the imperial household, and they did not want you fostering children or siring children with the empress or with the princesses or something like that. You were just an advisor. Your job was not to make more generations. Your job was to advise. Yep. Yeah. There's a chess position that could be renamed to that, you're certain. Right. So, Zhong Ai, he decides, okay, the emperor is dead. The next emperor that was supposed to take over died. So now I get to pick the emperor. And he picks this youngest son of Emperor Taiwu and puts him on the throne. And then a year later, the kid it's not even a year, it's 7 months, decides, no, I'm just going to run the country by myself. And then he kills the little kid. So this guy is just in bad shape. Zhong Ai then decides that he's going to kind of run the country by himself, but that doesn't work either. He gets arrested, and the nobles put him on trial. And when they found him guilty of all this murder and stuff, they sentence him to death, and then they kill him in a really horrible way. They cut off some of his body parts in sequence, and then they literally grind up the remains of his body into pulp, and then don't bury it. They just kind of throw it out so that his remains are effectively this was done ostensibly to make sure that he was not even at peace in the afterlife. Well, it's not yeah, that's true, Junk. He didn't really have very much in that way of that thing. So, but they cut off his big toes for some reason. It was weird. They tattooed his face like a prisoner. Chinese tattoos on the face were basically to demark you as a prisoner or some sort of high level law breaker. So they tattooed his face while he was still alive, and they started chopping off random pieces of him. And then when he finally died, they ground up the remains of his body and then kind of threw it out. It's really, really weird. But they weren't playing with this guy. He was bad news. All right. Need to make a little bit of headway because I got a little bit sidetracked, but that's okay. We had good questions. Oh, hey. This is some cursed mummy. No good afterlife for you. Also, hey, Junk. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing okay. Wang Cheng. Not much really goes on during his kingship. He rules from 452 to 465. He tries to destroy the Ruran. He launches several attacks against them. It doesn't go over very well. He can't beat them. He can't keep up with them. He launches another attack against a group of people called the Tuyahun, which we saw. And he does make a little bit of headway against them, especially with these trade routes out this way. So much so that one of the things that we start seeing in China are these things. We start seeing Northern Way depictions of camels. And you go, okay, cool, check it out. What's up with a camel? Well, again, this is because he's expanded to the point where he has now tapped into that good old-fashioned Silk Road. And one of the main animals that was being used to transport goods along the Silk Road, especially in the very arid parts of the Tarim Basin, were camels. So we know that camels were a thing, and you start seeing little pieces of art like this kind of pop up all over the kingdom around this time. So pretty neat stuff. Hey, JMR, what's up? How's it going? For those of you that are not already, please do go give my friend JMR a follow and hang out in the gaming fort, where you can watch him build Magikarp and play Zelda, which are like great things for me because I'm a little child. Wang Cheng is going to be an effective leader in that nothing happens. I've got this really interesting theory that I would love to write a book about, where I think that what can be said most about people for being effective is that nothing happened while they ruled. Nothing bad, nothing good. They just kept their hand on the tiller and kept everything above water. I think that can be a pretty good ruler, right? If you got to rule a country and at the end of your rule they said, you know what? Things are pretty good. Not amazing. We didn't go, win the Super Bowl or anything, but we also didn't die from the plague. I think that's okay. I think you can be a good leader and just kind of come out better than average. Honestly, that would be your goal, right? Let's just get 1 point up, right? Let's win with 1 point over. So there we go, Wang Cheng. But we're moving in the right direction. So next emperor. Oh, by the way, Wang Cheng dies really young. He dies when he's 25. And this is what's going to set up a pretty bad dowager crisis. When he dies, his son, Xian Wen, is only 11. And the lady that is going to take over as regent is named Feng. You didn't mess crap up. That's your gold star, right? I would totally take that. I would totally take, you didn't screw this up. Let's look at the map. When Xian Wen takes over, Northern Wei is pretty big. Bum, ba-dum, dun, 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 dun. Andy Cat, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. Hope you're having a good one. Please feel free to participate at whatever level you are comfortable with. If you want to chat, do your thing. You want to lurk, go for it. But tangents are welcome. You can ask questions about whatever you want. We can go off and chase rabbits and ramble about stuff. I'm cool with whatever, right? We're all just here to have fun and hang out. So, Northern Wei. It's a big old chunk. Notice that at this point, they had solidified the control of all of the north. And this is officially going to end the 16 Kingdoms period. And at this point in 464, we're going to enter what is called the Northern and Southern Dynasties period, where we have the Northern Wei and the Liu Song. Northern and Southern Dynasties, right? Now, we can see here that the Ruran are still around, as are the Tuyahun, but Northern Wei's got a big old chunk of territory, and all of this stuff out here might look like it's not organized, but holding on to this territory is, again, very, very important because this is the trade route that leaves China and goes to Central Asia. And you want to hold on to that because that's your cash flow. The thing is, Xian Wen is 11, and Empress Feng is going to go on to be Dowager Empress Feng. By the way, she is not his mother. She's his stepmother. Xian Wen's mother had been killed in some shady, hand-wavy kind of garbage stuff. But he is going to take over the throne at 11. And here's where the weird stuff really starts kicking in. Because if you were worried about where's the weird stuff, we've been almost an hour and a half in Chinese history and nothing really weird's come up. I mean, we've been talking about alchemy, poisoning, and mercury stuff and astrologers, but where's the really weird stuff? We have arrived. Because when Emperor Xian Wen is 13, Dowager Empress Feng decides that it's time for him to start having kids. So she marries him off, and then basically like, I mean, the eunuch who killed, and yeah, that was okay. That was weird sci-fi. That was weird. It's getting weirder though. So like, 13-year-old kid married off, and then forced to have kids. Like, here's how you have kids, and we're going to make sure you do this. And he has kids really, really young. Really young. And the reason that Dowager Empress Fang is doing this is because she wants to make sure that this kid has a next generation, because when he gets a little bit older, he's going to want to try to take over the throne, and she wants to be able to kill him and still have like a step grandson that she can run the kingdom through. But to make sure that they have that, you got to get this 13-year-old kid to go make some more babies with his wife that was substantially older than he was. It's just weird stuff, right? So the stepmother Empress Dowager Fang is going to continue to be a problem. She doesn't actually run the country very well. She ends up bringing her brother in, so now we've got like step uncle who's technically running the country, especially the military. The step uncle is actually a fairly good military commander though, and does actually take some land from the Liu Song. But by the time this kid hits 17, he decides, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I want to quit. Because he had effectively not been able to rule. He had been emperor for 6 years, and the only thing that he had managed to do was have a kid at 13. That's really weird. She doesn't get the you don't mess with this crap. Yeah, she does not get the gold star. No, she gets like demerits. She gets minus gold stars. Is there an opposite of a gold star, like a frowny face sticker? She gets those. So Xian Wen decides at 17 that he wants to retire. And he's going to continue kind of being emperor. So he retires and his 4-year-old kid technically becomes emperor. But it's kind of weird that when he retires, he actually ends up with more political power, because he's no longer directly under his stepmother. And this is going to be interesting because he survives for another 7 or 8 years. And here he is as an adult. So how many kids did he have? He had several. He had at least one other son and then a couple of daughters. At least. I'm not 100% certain. She gets side-eye, and then we shun her from the gossip circles. The thing is, she's the Empress Dowager, so you can't stop talking when she walks up, or she's going to be suspicious of you, and then she's going to get somebody to stab you, because she assassinates people all the time. So this is Emperor Xian Wen, who's technically at this point ex-Emperor Xian Wen, and is a young man trying to rule a country that he no longer technically rules. Did I start late? I did not start late. I started on time. I ran my mouth a while before I actually started getting to the history stuff. And then we had a kind of a big tangent, but it was a good tangent. And I enjoyed it. So, no, we started on time. How are you, Batbird? What's up? How's it going? Abdication to get your throne back. It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it goes, right? What kind of position is Empress Dowager? Is she actually in charge? Okay, so here's a crazy thing. Like, going back to the middle part of the Han Dynasty, especially when the Han Dynasty lost the western half and became Eastern Han, which was sort of like the beginning of the end for the Han Dynasty. This is like right around the turning point between BC to AD, right? When that happened, the leading family was still, the Han Dynasty family. But what ends up happening is that the emperors start getting successively younger, right? So you end up with by the end of the Han Dynasty, the last Han emperor was literally a little child that got kidnapped and then forced to abdicate, and then ended up getting paraded around. Anyway, this is a whole thing. What ends up happening is that the mothers of the emperors start becoming very, very powerful, because when the emperors die, which happens at an increasingly unfortunate rate as children, the consistency stays with the mother. And the position of Empress Dowager is actually very powerful, to the point that in the early Jin dynasty and the late Han dynasty, the Empress Dowagers had more power than the actual person who was emperor, both in name and in title. Like, there was no dispute that the Empress Dowagers were running the country. Like, no dispute, hands down. So when we talk about Empress Dowager Fang being like for real in charge, she was for real in charge. Like, nobody was doubting that she ran the country. Now, there was the fiction, of course, that all of these orders were coming out in the name of the emperor, but everybody knew where they came from. It was a pure fiction. Nobody was doubting who was actually making this stuff happen. Like a queen regent, yeah. You've been here for like an hour or so. You wasn't sure how much you missed. Gotcha. So the Dowager Empresses have a lot of power. And when Xian Wen gives up the power and then actually manages to get it back because he's no longer emperor, this makes Empress Dowager Fang really upset. And they actually have to have a powwow. And again, this is not his mother, this is his stepmother. And they have to sit down with their officials, and they start like working out this weird like situation where we don't know who's going to do what, and can I do this and can you do that? And effectively, Empress Dowager Fang is still going to be in charge, and then suddenly Xian Wen dies. Now, before somebody goes and hits the assassin command, don't do that quite yet. We don't really know how Xian Wen died. Some people in history have said that he was assassinated, but we do not have conclusive proof of that. Some of the sources say that because he was unable to find a way to run the country that he actually wanted to run, he killed himself, right? So like, he could not find a way to push Fang out of power, so he basically said, if I can't run the country, I'm going to kill myself. And that seems like something that is a plausible, end to this scenario, because Empress Dowager Fang had all of the cards. He wasn't even emperor in name anymore. His 4-year-old kid was emperor in name. So it's a really weird situation. We don't actually know what happened to Xian Wen, and it's pretty unfortunate because it seems like he was a pretty decent kid that probably would have been an okay ruler, but Empress Fang was just not going to let that happen. A lot of Chinese and Korean dramas in a period setting often have some kind of queen mother won't give up the power storyline arc. Figment, that's a great point. And that trope in Chinese and Korean media comes from verifiable historical situations just like this. So like a queen mother in Game of Thrones, yes, like Cersei Lannister. Right. And in some of these cases, even with the weird incest thing, right? So it's very much like a Cersei Lannister kind of situation. So when Xian Wen dies, this is going to kind of be the rise of his son, whose name is Xiao Wen. That's different. Not Xian Wen, Xiao Wen. And this kid's going to be in charge for a while. He rules from 471 to 499. So he's got a pretty lengthy reign, especially for somebody of this age. And he's going to have a problem with Fang as well. All these TV/movie storylines straight from historical events, and people still think history is boring. Right? I'm just like, oh, you love Game of Thrones. Go read where they got Game of Thrones from. Go read about the War of the Roses, which is basically where George R.R. Martin lifted most of Game of Thrones from. The audacity. The audacity. I love the idea that history is entertaining. I try to make history entertaining here. I don't like the idea that history has to be boring. I think that history being boring is the fault of teachers that are uninterested and uninvolved. I think that if you have a good, involved teacher that knows the material, that is interested in getting it out there, and is interested in having people understand the lessons that we can learn from it, history will never be boring. But I'm very biased, right? You never thought history was boring? You loved all your history classes? Well, that's good. I'm glad. Hey, Nick, it's good to see you. Dude, I love the little waving axolotl. That is so friggin' cute. No joke. I love that quite a bit. Everybody go give Nick Slottle a follow. Have some fun. Go hang out. And see the cute emotes. You have a waddle. Oh my gosh. It's too cute. It's too cute. Oh my gosh. Conga rats. I've never seen Yeah, I get it. That's good. That's good stuff. You're putting me to shame, Nix. And the laughing man. See, I mean, I love all of my emotes. I just wish I'd come up with ideas differently and faster. History is only entertaining if you're not in it. I can kind of agree with that, Brittany. I can see where you're coming from, and I kind of agree. If they cared too much about history, it would interfere with the basketball program. Oh, Junk with the accurate take on a lot of problems. I know I can have more emotes. I know. I feel the need to compensate artists, and I am short on the compensation funds at the moment. Okay, so Xiao Wen is emperor. He's a kid, actually a child. Empress Dowager Fang changes her title because she can do that. She is now Grand Empress Dowager Fang, or GED Fang, the notorious GED. Right? When Xiao Wen takes over and Xian Wen dies, Fang decides that it's time to make sure that she's going to be in charge forever. And she kills Xian Wen's wife, who is Xiao Wen's mother. Interestingly here, Xiao Wen's mother was a Han Chinese. And that is going to be an important fact because one of the things that starts happening a lot under Xiao Wen's rule is the larger Sinicization of the Kingdom of Northern Wei. This is them becoming like the Chinese. Grand Mob talking. What is it with that name? What's so grand about it? Got to get a new hat for that, right? You got a new headdress. Maybe go get your hair done. Nice. No. So there are two people here. The old emperor was Xian Wen. He's the guy that retired, and then when he couldn't run the country, he decided that he was going to either kill himself or he got assassinated. His son's name is Xiao Wen, which looks really, it's like one letter off, right? Xiao Wen is the child. Not Grogu, but like a child. He's 4 years old. and Fang kills Xianwen's mom. I'm sorry, Xiaowen's mom, who was Xianwen's wife. Right? She killed the last empress. And this is going to be a problem. So for most of his young rule, Xiaowen is under the control of Grand Empress Dowager Fang. But he's going to try to pull the same kind of thing that his dad did. In 485, at this point, he's kind of along the line. He is about 19 at this point. He goes to his step grandmother, who's not even his real grandmother, right? Step grandmother. And by the way, I know that family is who you make them. He was not trying to make her family, and she was clearly not trying to make him family. So step family can be family. That's not what I was trying to imply there. I apologize if I came off the wrong way. But this was not a functional family unit. He goes to his step grandmother. You're just going to randomly assassinate someone? There wasn't an assassination, though. Oh, because you think she killed Xianwen? I guess. If I had to put money on it, it's probably an even money thing. So he goes to his step-grandmother and he says, look, I'm the emperor. Oh, she did kill the empress. That'll work. I'll take it. I'll allow it. So he goes to his step-grandmother and says, I'm the emperor now. I'm 19 years old. I'm going to run the country. And she's like, no. And he's like, you're old. I'm young and powerful. You might have a whole bunch of people behind you, but if you died, nobody's going to ask questions. And you can either give me power and let me run some of the country, or I can make sure that you end real fast. And this kind of gets up in her face and she gets really upset. So they work out this power brokering deal where she's going to share power with him. And then she dies just a few years after that anyway. So when Xiaowen takes over the throne by himself, he's going to have about 10 years of rule where he can do purely what he wants to do. And he's going to do a lot. First off, he's going to start reorganizing the land in China. One of the things that had been going on in northern China was the way that the social structure operated. Land was taxed basically on the size of the plot of land that you owned. And if you were a noble, you basically did not have to pay as many taxes. So what was happening is that the nobles were effectively collecting these farms from poor people who could not pay the taxes in exchange for letting the poor people stay on the land and farm it as a tenant. So what Xiaowen does is actually fairly brilliant. He confiscates all of the land in Northern Wei. He says all of the land belong to me, right? He is now the land owner. And he then distributes the land back out equally to every single person across the board in Northern Wei. So everybody has the same size plot of land now. And that means everybody is expected to work that land and pay the taxes on that land like they're supposed to. And this actually does a lot to revolutionize his tax base, and it gets rid of a lot of corruption, which is something that he had tried to go after anyway. He's also going to start pushing really hard for this adoption of Chinese culture. And one of the things that he's going to really push is Buddhism. And if we look here, we can see him here in the front. But if we look at this art, and you know anything specifically here about Buddhist art, you'll know that this type of art style that is being done right here to show him or to depict him is very Buddhist influenced. The way that the eyes and the ears and the forehead and the proportions are drawn, this is a very, very Buddhist influenced piece of art. And this is going to be sort of indicative of his reign. Here's another, this particular piece here is a carving. He is here leading this procession. And this is, again, very Buddhist style art. And this was something that was brought into Northern Wei a few generations earlier, but he's really going to go all at it because, again, this is something that he's going to push, this idea that we need to be more like the Han Dynasty Chinese. And that's going to continue even further because he's going to force everybody in Northern Wei to change their family name. And he's going to make them give up the old Xianbei family names and adopt Han Dynasty Chinese last names. And so he's going to change his family name from Toba to Yuan, which is not going to go over very well. And yeah, the nobles take a lot of exception to this, especially the Xianbei, who feel like he is effectively trying to eliminate their own culture. And he kind of was. I mean, he's not completely Xianbei, though. Remember that his mom was a Han Dynasty Chinese princess. So this is going to be a big shift in the way that the northern campaigns are going to operate. Oh yeah, that's no worries. Let him type. Let him go at it. He can send me messages. Hey nephew, what up? Hope you're having a good one. I hope that one day you grow up to appreciate history like your aunt does. So Xiao Wen's going to be fairly effective at what he does. He's going to push this concept of sinicization, and he's also going to try the old attacking the South move. The difference, though, is that by the time we get to the end of Xiao Wen's reign, which is in 499, by the way, so like right at the end of our period of time, the Liu Song dynasty had collapsed, and a new kingdom down in the south had established itself called Southern Qi. And they were run by a military leader who was very effective. And even though Northern Wei had taken a substantial portion of this territory, because remember when we looked earlier, the Yellow River used to be the border between Northern Wei and the Liu Song, but now they control both sides of the river well down into what used to be Liu Song territory. So we have a balance now, though, between the Southern Qi and the Northern Wei. But this is where we're going to end for the night, because we're at the end of Xiao Wen's reign, but we're also at the end of the century. But the balance of power here between Northern Wei and Southern Qi during the Northern and Southern periods is a fairly interesting one, because they find a way to coexist for a little while. Versus Northern Whey Protein. He's having small meltdowns every half hour because he's refused to nap. His only options right now are play with me and listen to me sing war songs to my people. I shall squall at the top of my lungs. But there we go. Friends, friends might be stretching it. They become aware that they can't immediately destroy the other one, and that makes them think a little bit longer about trying to destroy the other one. Friends, I don't know about that. They treat each other like they are friends. They open embassies with each other, and they start trying to establish trade with each other, and they definitely treat each other better than the Northern Wei did the Liu Song and vice versa. There are various points, by the way, under Emperor Taiwu and during the middle part of Emperor Xiao Wen's reign, where these two had proposed to intermarry with the Liu Song ruling family. They were like, look, you send your daughter up here, or we'll send our daughter down there, and we can combine our royal families and we can unite China again. But the Liu Song were like, oh no, we're clearly the Chinese people here, because remember, they were the original like Han Dynasty Chinese people, and they still looked very negatively at the North as these barbarians that had usurped control of the North. So even though the Northern Wei were kicking their butts left and right, the Liu Song refused to recognize them as legitimate rulers. Yeah, they took the long game at risk, right? Or they're playing the civilization game and they're trying to win by diplomacy, right? Instead of just by beating the junk out of each other. But that is going to wrap up our discussion for the night on my end. But as always, if you all have questions about stuff, or if you would like to redeem any channel points, now is a good time to do so. Otherwise, we're going to see who is screaming, and then we might go pop in on some people that are screaming. Boop-a-doo. And I said Andy Cat, but the person that followed me earlier was Andy Ka, or Andika, perhaps? I'm not certain. I apologize if I said your name wrong. How the science technology advanced. So China was pretty advanced scientifically. They were not the most scientifically advanced people on the earth at the time. That would probably be a toss-up between the Romans or the Persians. China's internal conflicts had caused a slowdown in some of the scientific advances, but China does recover pretty fast, and by the time we get to a couple of dynasties from now, so we're going to have northern and southern dynasties for a little while. At the end of the next phase, we get a new dynasty that shows up in in China. It's in 581, called the Sui dynasty. They're going to live in power for a little bit of time, and then we're going to get to a new big powerful dynasty called the Tang dynasty, and there's going to be some big scientific advances that take place during that, and they rule from the 600s up to the 900s. And then by the time we get to the 1000s in China, we're going to get to the world's first Renaissance. And so China is actually going to start advancing scientifically much faster than the rest of the world. Mostly from the trade access that's set up under the Tang Dynasty. Tang Dynasty is super, super powerful. They are the most powerful empire on Earth for a couple hundred years in a row. They're crazy powerful, and nobody talks about them. What was happening around? You mean like around the rest of the world? So that's kind of what we're talking about in this phase. We've already talked about Japan, who was... They had emperors, but they weren't necessarily very well organized, and their years weren't being accurately kept. The kingdom of Goguryeo here in Korea was the most powerful that it had ever been. Down here in Southeast Asia, we have the emergence of some fairly decent-sized kingdoms that were going to begin making a lot of money off of trade, especially the group down here called the Funan, a little group right here called the Chinla. There's some city-states right here in what is modern-day Myanmar that are popular. Ruling here in India, we have the Gupta Empire, who is a little bit at its height, maybe a little bit past its height. Central Asia right here is dominated by the Sassanid Persian Empire, which is probably one of the more powerful empires on Earth at the time. Rome has been split. Rome has Eastern Rome and Western Rome. Western Rome is in really, really bad shape. Eastern Rome is not too much better shape. Sub-Saharan Africa, we're still having migratory people go around. Over here, we've got some people groups down here that are forming kingdoms. We've got the big Teotihuacan kingdom here. We've got some small city-state kind of things going on in... well, not city-state's not even the right word for it. We've got some city-dwelling peoples that are living right here in North America. Australia is still very much... unconquered and well, I mean, there are people there, but they're not living in cities. They're still small villages, mostly nomadic. Southeastern Asian islands down here are becoming settled, especially some of the coastal islands around here, Java, around the coast of Borneo, but not really particularly any big kingdoms or states. So that's a rundown of the world, but it's becoming more complex, and it will continue to become more complex, and the longer we go through time, the more people that we're going to end up being able to talk about. All right, other questions? Any points or any redemptions that anybody wants to do? Anybody having, like, even random questions, right? What's in the news kind of stuff. If you want to redeem that, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll see where we might be able to go give a raid. What you got? What you got? I'll continue to word vomit here for just a second. So the next time that I will... I watched the first episode of Boba Fett, and it was so bad that I haven't watched any of the rest of them. That first episode was so bad. Like Boba Fett at the end of Mandalorian. Are you not entertained? Aristotle.
Is this not why you're here?
You must have popped on early, man. You must have popped on real early. Aristotle, folks. Welcome, friends. My name is Shane. I teach history and sociology in college, and we talk about history here on stream. And goof off, I was actually complaining about how much I didn't really care very much for the Book of Boba Fett episode 1. Hey, Atrishna, what's up? Good to see you. For those of you that are not already following Aristotle, I don't know why not. The dude is brilliant and has an amazing chat room full of really smart people and really kind people that can talk about complex issues and not end up hating each other's guts at the end of it, which I think is a remarkable thing to do in the modern world. If you can have different opinions of somebody and still like them at the end of the conversation, that's good stuff. Hey, what's up, Vipers? Good to see you, my friend. You left to raid back. That's all good, Evo. Good to see you again. All the good conversation streams are raiding each other. Yeah. Early stream, you wanted to raid you. Oh, Eris, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for bringing all of the eyeballs. You see a lot of recommendations. Boba Fett gets good from episode 5 onwards and opens up some interesting possibilities for the entire franchise. See, here's the thing. I don't want to watch a series that takes 5 episodes to get good. Especially when they're hour-long episodes. Like, hey, if you invest 5 hours, there's going to be some interesting stuff at the end of it. So just hold on. You'll get there eventually.
We shall have camels, horses,
Lumpy,
escort, provisions,
my heart.
and tanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lumpy. Yeah, I mean, coming on stream, it just always makes me feel so much better, man. Right? Like, it's such a great opportunity to come hang out with people, to be among like-minded people and remind myself that even though I live in an area that is not particularly very open-minded and is very hidebound to their particular version of history, that there are people out there that want to learn, that are interested, that want us to talk about stuff, they're going to take the lessons that they might get here and use them to make the world a better place. That always makes me feel the warm fuzzies on the inside. So I might start stream in kind of a poopy pants mood, but I rarely ever leave stream in a poopy pants mood, right? You watched Troy on Netflix. You thought about my stream a lot, especially since you're the body double and stunt double for Brad Pitt. Maybe like Brad Pitt with one T, and I played the stunt double of a guy that gets murdered by the pretty Brad Pitt. Troy, I had a big problem with, basically from like Jump Street. They, oh man, it's so bad, so bad. But episode 5 and 6 of Boba Fett are episodes of The Mandalorian, not Book of Boba Fett. Oh, okay, cool. Were you building anything this weekend? I did not build anything last weekend, no. I took last weekend off because I felt like being a lazy lump. And I sat on the couch and hung out in other people's chats and just generally goofed off. Boba Fett was always touted as the Mandalorian 2.5. And that's okay, except for in the first episode, they basically nerfed Boba Fett and Sheddick Fand, right? Like, they were kicking butt and taking names in Mandalorian, like one-shot killing everybody. And, like, missile blowing people up and, like, stabby people and doing all this crazy, like, jujitsu stuff. And then some crazy space ninjas do backflips off of a building in Tatooine and, like, hem them in and then, like, do the really stilted, like, no, you've got to come at me one at a time and do one blow and I'll deflect it and then disarm you and then you can come at me with one blow instead of, like, beat the crap out of the guy. Also, here's the thing that really got me kind of hacked off about it. If you're trying to kill one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy and he's walking down the road without his helmet on, shoot him in the head from a distance. Like, from away, just, and he's gone. Don't, like, run up to him with an energy shield and then, like, oh no, he's going to hit me. Come on, dude. That's, like, the lamest assassin ever. I mean, even some of these Chinese assassins that we talked about today are better than that, right? Wait till they're asleep to stab them. Don't, like, come up at them, like, I'm going to stab you. Did we learn nothing from Life Aquatic? If you're going to hit somebody, don't tell them that you're going to hit them. Just hit them, right? Have to say, Troy did not hold up, but once it gets to the battles, you can't help but enjoy the spectacle. Yeah. I mean, there's some of it that's kind of like, just like... In wrestling terms, Paris is Achilles'... Aww. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Shoot him in the head later on Disney Plus. They explain why he's passive. I see. I'm hiring Shane for when/if you make military plans. Lumpy. Okay, so you joke. The mods in the chat here, Kilted Preacher and Mac in a lab coat, and I have we've all been friends, by the way, for decades. We all went to high school together, and I've known KP for, like I said, since I was like 3. But we sort of have this running gag that's not really a gag, and I don't think any of us think it's an actual gag, that if we ended up becoming, like, you know, if we crossed over into some sort of post-apocalyptic world, I would be some sort of really horrible warlord that would probably rule some sort of tyrannical state. And I see that possibility within me, and it kind of scares me. Star Wars assassins were never very good at their jobs, right? Everyone knows that the doorknob is the most effective assassin weapon, right? You know, you get wrestled off by Emperor Shao, or I guess ex-Emperor Shao, since he had been, you know, kicked out of... This, by the way, came from last week. Some of the generals tried to kill the ex-emperor by assassinating him. They sent an assassin, and the emperor fought off the assassin and started trying to run through the building to get out. And the assassin chucked a doorknob and whacked him in the head and knocked him out long enough to come kill him with a sword. And that in a roof tile, yeah. The only Star Wars thing you've watched in years was The Mandalorian, and it was okay. The ending was awful. You're not trusting Star Wars again. Yeah. I mean, Mandalorian was okay. It would be okay. Well then. Mac and I would be trying to rebuild society to its current state. Shay would be Lord Among Us. Pretty much. Pretty man. Yeah. Oh, now we're going to quote Kanye. No one man should have all that power. That's all the motivation you need to toil at maintaining the world in a functional state. That guy that knows how every single emperor in the world that has ever been killed got killed is now running a small separatist movement in the southern part of the states. Don't go down there. It's crazy town. Also, this region has more guns than basically anywhere else on the planet, and I'm not even joking. Shay would be Dr. Stone, but for dictators. Hey, warlords and dictators, are you trying to take over your chunk of the territory? Call me up and I'll make some plans with you. 1-800-TAKE-IT-ALL. I know exactly how to kill Shane. Feed me a strawberry. I'll die. Start randomly quoting stuff that's misappropriated and takes things out of historical context. And I'll get really ticked off. By the way, if anybody has any actual historical questions or anything like that you want to throw at me, by all means, please do. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did not necessarily give myself a very good introduction when Eris rated in. My name is Shane. I teach college. I have degrees in history and sociology, but I've also studied a whole bunch of other stuff like religion and archaeology and some evolutionary stuff and human migration stuff and anthropology. Basically, the liberal arts is kind of my thing. Hey, look, where we go. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, you're absolutely welcome. You can totally ask random friggin' questions at any point. I'd be happy to give an answer. Tonight we were talking about China. I prepare lessons usually on Thursday nights to cover history in chronological order. And tonight we talked about the 5th century in northern China. So we talked about all the people in the kingdom of Northern Wei. And then we usually kind of shoot the breeze here at the end and ask some questions and stuff like that and goof off for a little bit before we go do a raid. Dear Protestant, I'm delighted to inform you that you've won a brand new car in the IRA sweepstakes. It's sitting outside. Please feel free to start it up at your convenience. I'm not that dumb. Also, I don't know if they would consider me a Protestant. I was referencing the anime. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to go tend to the botched cave painting I dare call a body. Oh, lumpy. Oh, that's not true. If anybody is a botched cave painting, it's totally me. I'm disproportionate from the top to the bottom. But for real, we were actually just before wrapping up the stream prior to Eris giving the raid in. So if anybody has any questions that are just pressing about stuff that's going on in the world or politics stuff or history stuff or whatever, you're welcome to throw that in. If we don't have any pressing topics, usually I only stream about a couple hours or so, and then we go do a raid. So if there are questions, by all means, do it. Otherwise, speak now or kind of forever hold your peace. Maria Zavaris. I didn't say that right. I did say it. Maria Zavaris. You've been listening for a while and just wanted to know what is my favorite warlord. My favorite warlord of the Three Kingdoms period. Okay, so here's the crazy thing. Liu Bei is kind of my thing. But I like Liu Bei for a few reasons. So in the Three Kingdoms of period, three Kingdoms of China, you have the Kingdom of Wei. This is not the same kingdom that we talked about, by the way. This was ruled by a guy named Cao Cao. This is the Kingdom of Wei. Then you have the Kingdom of Wu, which was run by the Sun family, specifically a guy named Sun Quan, but then his kids. And then you have the smaller of the three kingdoms, which sort of sat... Where am I? Where's my map? Kind of right over here. That was the Kingdom of Shi. And it was run by a guy named Liu Bei. And Liu Bei basically made his kingdom work because he was a really legit dude. When he made promises, he kept them. He tried to treat everybody fairly equally. He recognized greatness in people, regardless of their stature. A lot of the people that were ended up being his generals started off as kind of foot soldier people that he was like, that dude's smart. And I see something in that person, so we're going to give you a promotion. He wasn't fully meritocratic, but he was a pretty smart dude. More like Lai Bei. Liu Bei was particularly wise, and he had some of the best military strategists that existed in the entire period, especially a guy named Zhuge Liang, who was I might go so far as to say the smartest military leader in the history of the world. Zhuge Liang was friggin' crazy smart. Do I think we're on the brink of war? I think we're always on the brink of war. Humans are so unpredictable. The idea of predicting when we're going to go to war is... there were 3 different coups last week in Africa. So, it can happen anywhere at any time. Who's the worst leader in history? Mao Zedong. Speaking of history, you're taking History 448, History of the 20th Century Intellectuals. Ooh, radical disability. That sounds interesting. What kind of stuff are you talking about in that class? I'm not that dumb. Don't say that you're not that dumb at all. You're very smart. I have many magical pieces of paper. You're learning the Frankfurt School. Ah, interesting. The Germans. Yep. You've heard from a friend that Cao Cao was mostly a fair and just ruler to his people. Would you say he was a good or bad person? Mostly fair ruler is code name for he knew when to punish people and get away with it. Cao Cao was a smart dude. He was an incredibly intelligent political operator, but he was pretty friggin' brutal to his people. I don't think I would give him the McInnes thumbs up of approval. The state that he left behind fell away from his family because he had basically run people into the ground. The strategy that he had used to win the war was effectively just keep throwing people into the meat grinder because he had a big population, and he wiped out a whole generation of people in that region, and then had to bring in external help that he couldn't control, and his family lost power about 3 generations later. Not even 2 generations later, to the Sima clan, who went on to found the Jin dynasty. So, not quite Dong Zhuo, though. No. Like, Dong Zhuo was horrible, right? That dude was just a monster. I mean, who kills and kidnaps children, right? Like, Dong Zhuo was a pretty bad dude. Dong Zhuo was great. Yeah, so if you're defending Dong Zhuo, and then you go on to say that Cao Cao was an okay dude, I'm suspect. Like, do you enjoy tyrants? Is that kind of your wheelhouse? And if so, I mean, different strokes for different folks, but I'm not big on the tyrannical, dictatorial kind of person. That's not really my cup of tea. This is my cup of tea. And it's got Earl Grey in it. Earl Grey, hot. It's actually not hot anymore. It's been sitting here for about 2.5 hours. And it's kind of, like, cold. I don't know what that is, Figment. Oh, dude. Is that Figment's nephew? Hey, Figment's nephew. What's up, Figment's nephew? Tea, Earl Grey, lukewarm. Right? The nephew has spoken, indeed. Promise you won't pester me with more poorly worded questions, but can you basically tell me what the Manchu... Okay, so... The Manchu are... Okay. Here's the deal. That region of the world is not easy to define ethnically speaking because they were... Okay. Let me get my thoughts in straight. So the region that we're talking about is right around here. So generally speaking, this area is referred to as Manchuria. So if you've ever heard of like the Manchurian Candidate, right? The Manchu people are from a larger ethnic group, and this actually gets into stuff that we were talking about earlier about ethnic groups in China, that are called Tungusic. No, that's not right. Tungusic. From Tungusic. Sorry, Tungusic. That's Tun. Tungusic people. It's a fairly common region. Curvinator, thank you so much for that follow. And welcome to the adventure. Hope you're having a good one. Feel free to participate at whatever level is comfortable for you. So, historically speaking, the Manchu people are hard to define as an origin because we don't really know too much about the people that they came from. They came from this group of people called the Jurchen, who actually were brought into China as laborers under the Jin dynasty. So the Jin dynasty was the Wei kingdom that won the 3 kingdoms period. So you have 3 kingdoms, Wei wins that. The Jin dynasty unites China. The Jin dynasty then has to bring in people from the outside because they're running out of manpower to run China itself. They bring in the Jurchen, who are going to be sort of like part of the leadership of the Jin dynasty for a while. But we don't really know who they are far back in history because they have so many different names. Like one of the names that they might refer to historically is the Mohe, who are a group of people that were kind of floating around in that area. They might have also been the Shushin. The problem is that this region is not really full of cities. It's kind of a porous overlapping boundary of a lot of different migrant or semi-nomadic people. And when you have a system like that, what ends up happening is they all run into each other, they overlap with each other. Sometimes they intermarry with each other and form a new ethnic group that's a blend of the two. And the Tungusic people are going to be a blend of much older ethnic groups. So the specific concept of I didn't mean to do that. But specifically, the Manchus are going to be... They're going to come out of this nomadic group and turn into a sedentary group. So their ancestors were nomadic, but the Manchu are going to be living in small cities or small villages, mostly doing animal farming, sometimes doing agricultural stuff. But this is mostly going to be in the like the 10th or so century. So like the 900s is when you're going to start seeing the earliest evidence of these like actual identifiable Manchu as individual groups. But that is going to end up being pretty quickly wrapped up into the larger Mongolian Empire that's going to come out here. Because when the Mongolians began expanding, the Manchu sort of get lumped in with that. And that is going to be yet another issue, because the Mongolian people, when they take over, are going to do the whole thing of intermarrying again. So this introduces a lot of new ethnic identity into the Manchu. Very basically, it's hard to say who the Manchu really are, right? So you have the Jurchen, who are kind of like the original people that they end up becoming identified as. They move around a little bit. They end up taking over part of the northern chunk of China. They're going to be one of the larger ethnic groups in northern China, but they're not Han, right? So they're not Han Dynasty Chinese, which is something that we actually ran into quite a bit today, because the Han Chinese were sort of like the favored ethnic group in China at the time. So around the 10th century, though, you're gonna start seeing these people that are going to be up in the north. They're going to start causing quite a bit of trouble in the north. They're going to take over part of the north. They're going to end up ruling part of like big chunks of China later on, but that's all the way under like the Ming Dynasty, which is much later in time. I know that's not necessarily a good answer, but the problem with a lot of ethnic history in northern regions like this is it's hard to say. And the best thing that I could say to do, and this is kind of hard to do in China, is it would be really great if the Chinese government would allow outside people to look at graves that we know for a fact were Manchu people, and then do DNA sequencing on their bones, because they would be well within the range of producing DNA. The issue is that the modern government of China has such a stranglehold on any data that comes out of China that they don't want people to necessarily be able to untie the riddle of what a lot of these people were, because the official Chinese statements were things that were still written by like Mao Zedong, right? So there is a concerted benefit in a lot of Chinese history to leave it alone, right? Just to not let people go do stuff like this. And especially when you start talking about ethnic groups that are not Han Dynasty Chinese, especially big ethnic groups like the Manchu, there's going to be a kind of a consolidated effort to just say, oh, they were Chinese all along, right? They're not really that different. They were like us, you know. They're cool stuff. You gotta want to just think the way that we think and do the way that we do, and don't ask these deep questions about where they came from and are they different, because they're Chinese now, right? And we're all Chinese, and we're all just going to be Han Chinese, and that's the end of it. And I always try my best to not give an answer to something that is definite if I can't say definite. Like if you said, hey, who are the Manchu? Tell me right now who they are. The only thing that I could tell you is way back in time, they were nomadic. They probably turned into a group from like the Mohe to the group called the Jurchen, which were pretty big in the Jin dynasty. And then after that, there were groups of people that kind of got wrapped up in this north, like eastern chunk of Manchuria, which is named after them, in small villages that were herdsmen. And then they got lumped in with a larger Mongolian empire, which forced a lot of them down into China itself as the Yuan dynasty conquered China in the 11-1200s, and then that ethnic mix became much more evident over time as many of the Manchu found their way into power. That's not a definitive answer, but I can back all of that up. I am not by any means what I would consider a Chinese scholar. It's just something that I like, and I've done a lot of digging on it. And you are never bugging me with questions like that, by the way. Doing animal farming has a whole different connotation post 20th century, right? Yeah. Then again, I guess husbandry wouldn't have been different. Yeah, pretty much. Awesome answer. I can see how streaming benefits you as well as the viewers. You don't want to ask it. Oh, no. You go ahead. Greetings from Rome. I've been to Rome several times. I do quite love Rome. I did most of my master's in history work on Rome. I've been there several times. I've taken my in-laws around Rome. It was the last time that I was there. A lot of my favorite historical stories came from the Roman Empire. Late Bloomer, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And anybody else is free to ask questions. Again, I am here to answer. If you've got interesting things or if you want to ask something, I'll be happy to. Top 3 countries where history is preserved. Ooh, that's a good one. The question here is, do you mean history preserved accurately, or do you mean history preserved, period? You're renewing your passport. I want to travel. Dude, Eris, I would bet that you would be... I don't usually cuss on stream, so I'll say kick a travel partner. Dude, I would love to go traveling with you. That'd be friggin' amazing. Shane loves questions and tangents. Absolutely. I do love weird questions. Is it weird that you're doing your photography coursework while listening to a historian on Twitch? No. Absolutely not. As in, you go outside and trip over an artifact. See, by that definition, that's not necessarily history preserved. That's just history available. And if you're talking about where you can just walk around and trip over artifacts, number 1 on that list is Turkey. Turkey has... Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Maria. Salve, as the Latins would say, right? Welcome. Thanks for that follow. Welcome to the adventure. Hope to see you again sometime. Okay, so Turkey has the most square footage of ancient remains that I've ever seen in my life. There are regions of Turkey where you can get in a car, drive 5 minutes, get out at an ancient site, get back in the car, drive 5 minutes, and get out at another ancient site. It is absolutely chock full of historical stuff. You can't not run into history in Turkey. And it doesn't matter where you are. Even in the middle of the friggin' desert. I've been in the middle of some like actual deserts where I got actual dehydration climbing mountains. And there's on the top of the mountain, there's friggin' ancient remains in Turkey. It's the most amazing place for historical stuff, period. Greece has a ton of ancient stuff. It is not as accessible because a lot of it is controlled and a lot of it has been excavated and then subsequently shut down. So you can trip over the fence that leads you to it, or if you are brave, or perhaps daring, or perhaps stupid, which I might or might not be, wink wink, you can just jump the fence because nobody is out there, and then go take the pictures of the stuff that you wanted, and then, get back in the car and go. But per square mile, Greece has a crap ton of history, and history just anywhere. The island of Sicily. Sicily has a whole bunch of history that people don't really know. Like, the island of Sicily was settled by the Phoenicians like in 1000 BC or even 1200 BC, depending on how exactly you want to start doing your dating stuff. Sicily has such an ancient past, and there's so much cool stuff there. And because it's an island, you can drive basically anywhere and just run into something. The island of Crete is similar to that. Crete was not as heavily populated, though, as Sicily, and technically Crete is part of Greece, so I'll lump that in together. But I'll say in order of most to greatest to lesser: Turkey, Greece, the island of Sicily specifically. Good show of faith. You can do creative stuff all the time. The Nomad. Impeccable taste. We can go with your preferred definition. Cool. Top 3 places you want to visit before you die. I've been to a lot of those places, Traffic Cone, already. 3 places that are still left. See, I have 2 of these lists. I have the list of where I would like to go, and then I have the list of where I'll actually be able to go. Because there are lots of places where I would love to go and I can't, because of mostly political trouble. So there are pretty big differences there. If it's the places that I can get to, I would like to go. And see, now this is even questionable about whether or not I could get to it. I'd like to go to Egypt. I don't think going to Egypt would be a problem. I'm pretty sure that Egypt is calmed down enough right now to get to. Egypt. I'd like to go to Japan. And I'd like to go to Israel. I mean, but honestly, just for real, like I would go just about anywhere. I am not really picky. If it was anywhere that I could go on Earth, like if we put a pause button, or if aliens abducted everybody on Earth, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. No joke. Night, Nix. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging out. Like Horkemeyer and Adrono, you'll be interesting, but we're getting into Freud. Oh, Freud. For a disability activist gives a framework to understand the one that they're We're going to get to Freud in a couple of chapters in my sociology class. No, you're good. You hate Egypt. Okay. Your grandfather was in Egypt in 2014 and said it was cool. 2014 Egypt would have probably... No, 2014 Egypt would have been like spicy Egypt. That would have been right around... When was Mohammed Morsi? Okay, so Morsi had already been ejected. He got kicked out in 2013. Okay. When Morsi was like in charge, that would not have been a good time to go to Egypt. To Shane's list of places if time was paused, right? Egypt is the reason my preferred herbal relaxation assistant is illegal. I don't know if it's necessarily the location as it is the people, right? I don't know if we can blame a geographic location for particular banned substances, right? I don't think that the pyramids have anything out for you. All right, ladies and gents. I love the fact that we've got some good questions. I did hang around quite a bit longer than the end of the stream than normal, but that's okay because I feel like if you all rated in, I might as well give you some content to give you an idea of what it's like here. So, you know, don't put Morrissey in charge of any political situation he just seen. Radical, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. Techman, it's Mohammed Morsi. Traffic cone, welcome in, and thanks. So I think it's time for us to go give ourselves a raid, and I think that we are going to go and raid another educational streamer, because if you have not had your fill of thinky people, I think we're going to maybe go do some more thinky people stream. But I'm just looking at who I thought we might raid, and that person is currently on a break. So maybe we could hang around just a little bit longer to see if the break will end in just a moment. Okay, Tegman. Okay. I appreciate the music joke, but I just wanted to make sure that, that we were on the same page. Yeah, Morrissey is like, I'm so sad. Tell us all about Chinese food. I love Chinese food. I really do. I'd love to go to China. I don't know if going to China would be a safe thing to do right now. And see, the saying that here's the crazy thing about it. Like, I am what a lot of people would consider a high value target. I work at a college. I am a white male. I stick out in a crowd. And if somebody were going to get all squirrely and say that somebody was a spy, you know, I'm probably the guy that's going to get, like, accused of being a spy somewhere. And I don't want to spend 3 years in a Chinese jail while the Secretary of State's office tries to badger the Chinese into letting me go. That's really not something I want to do, right? Shane practicing his raid strategy for post-apocalypse, right? What do you want to see in Iraq, Iran, and Syria? So I want to go to Syria because I want to spend about 2 or 3 months trying to locate an ancient city called Washukani, which was the capital of one of the big Bronze Age empires called Mitanni. And Mitanni was one of the more powerful empires of the period of time, and we don't know where its capital was. It's the only Bronze Age major capital that we haven't located. And I think I know about where it is, and it's either on just the north of the Turco-Syria border or just south of the Turkish-Syria border. And unfortunately, that area right now is basically overrun with Turkish military, and I don't necessarily want to get, whacked. Because, ain't nobody want to do that. But I would love to go run around there. There are also just all sorts of really cool ancient cities that are in Syria. Palmyra would be really, really cool to go see. I don't think that would be something that I would be able to go see right now, though. It's just not really something that is accessible. In Iraq, I'd love to go to the city of Ur, which was basically like the first city ever. There are other really big, very, very ancient cities there. I'm seeing if I can maybe prompt something like, "Hey, where are we? Are we gonna you're gonna come back soon?" In Iran, there are a few places that I'd like to go to. So Ctesiphon is another place I'd like to go to in Iraq. There's not very much left of Ctesiphon, but it would be really cool to go see that. It's the capital of ancient Persia. In Iran specifically, there are a few places like Takhbostan and Naqshbandistan that are these really big bas-reliefs that were carved by the Sasanian kings, especially like Shapur the First and Shapur the Second, and Khusrau the First, that are kind of on my bucket list that I doubt I'll ever be able to go see because, it just happens that way. So, alas. I would love to go see all of those things, but I don't think it will ever be in the cards. Was supposed to go to China in March 2020 and it didn't work out. Yeah, there was other things going on in 2020. Some people may call this a flawed question, but I assure you it's not. Why is Aurelian the best emperor? Because he restored the Dacian border. I don't know. Aurelian was a decent emperor in the middle of a whole bunch of crappy emperors, and what ends up happening is that makes him look really great by comparison. When everybody else is either dying or getting assassinated or collapsing on the battlefield because they suck so bad, or, we're in a period of time that's literally called the crisis of the 3rd century, and you are a better than average emperor, dude, it makes you look like a boss. Like, if everybody else around you is failing and you come out with a C, you're like, oh my gosh, that dude was great. Now, I mean, he did fix a lot of the economic policy, restoring some of the stability to the coinage was really important. It had been very heavily debased. Pushing the borders and establishing some border forts was a good thing. He was not as successful as it really looks on paper, though. Rome was still in pretty bad shape. It wasn't really until Diocletian that things got straightened back up. I would give Diocletian better emperor than Aurelian. And that might hurt your feelings, but I feel like that's probably the case. So I hope that doesn't make you hate me. The Middle East makes no sense. It's like saying middle up. It's like having that middle down is okay. Middle down. Middle East. Well, it's not the Far East, and it's not the East. It's just the Middle East. It's like Middle Earth, right? Maximinus Thrax will always be the greatest emperor, in size at least. No, he wasn't 8 foot tall. No, he wasn't 8 foot tall. He was a big dude, but he wasn't that big. All right, so I don't think that the place that I wanted to raid is going to work. So we're going to go raid another location, which is just as cool, if not cooler in other ways. We're going to go raid my friend Crush Builds, who was in the stream earlier, who's on stream doing some art right now. I have streamed about 43 minutes longer than I thought that I would, but that's okay. Because it was good chat and it was good times. But my voice is getting a little bit scratchy now, and it's definitely time for me to shut the freak up. This huge guy, and suddenly, yeah, you're the... Well, I mean, again, there wasn't a lot of competition, like good competition for the Emperor spot anyway at that point. Ciao, arrivederci. My Italian is not so great. My wife speaks much better Italian than I do. I can get by and I can say like thank you and where's the bathroom, but it's not so great. Bye, Trish. Good to see everybody. The next time you'll definitely see me is next Thursday, where we will be talking about the collapse of the Gupta Empire in India. It's going to be a fun stream. I will probably be on sometime this weekend doing model building and just chatting, but I can't promise that. Likely. But anyway, see everybody around. Thank you all. It's been great. I always appreciate my time hanging around you all. So thanks, and take it easy. See you all next time.